The hypersexualization of kids in our modern societies is a problem. The fact that videos like this are material that's stressing the same points are being disliked and ridiculed is also a concern. The hypersexualization of society, period, is responsible for sex-addicted drones and plenty of broken homes. Destruction of the general family unit has been achieved by persistently blending sex, love, promiscuity, and cheating in all media formats.
From the day that someone is born, they are inundated with advertisements, trying to sell false emotion or lifestyle, as well as unrealistic and mostly inappropriate media messages. Children have become the main target of major corporations seeking to gain loyal customers for life. Not only that, but you could hardly find TV shows or movies without sex blatantly or subliminally. We as girls are being portrayed as objects while being taught to act as such. We are being taught to accept 6-year-olds as sexy on TV shows like Toddlers and Tiaras, where the children dress like hookers from Pretty Woman, and pop culture occult icons, not to mention the swimsuit modeling. These girls are going to be damaged for life. The following presentation may help you understand more about this issue. Thank you for watching.
Hi, this is Pastor Joe Green, head pastor of Antioch Assembly Church located in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Also the founder of the 2019 movement, and I want to share a couple of thoughts with you. You know, we have a lot going on. As usual, you know, there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of drama in the world, and I want to give some insight in some of the things that I see. You know, a lot of these movements that are happening, we have the Me Too movement, the Time's Up movement, you have Black Lives Matter, Antifa, you have the March for Our Lives movement. All these major movements is happening in the country, and I know most of you probably will say, well, what do they have to do with each other? But if you've been following the 2019 movement, I've kind of been tying these things in together. I've seen very few organic movements, and of course, for those of you who may not know, an organic movement would be a movement that maybe me and some of my friends get together and we just say, hey man, this is really something important to me. We're going to go and we're going to get together, we're going to organize, and we're going to march down to the Capitol or something like that. That would be an organic movement. That would be something that we all feel passionate about, and we kind of get other people that are passionate about it as well, and then we march or protest or whatever the case may be. But what I'm here to tell you is most of these movements that you see nowadays, they're not organic movements. They're not in that vein of just being people coming together and spontaneously creating a movement. Most of them are orchestrated, and most of them have an agenda. They have an end game that they are trying to press us towards. You know, if you ever follow, like I said, you follow the 2019 movement, I talk often about the Hegelian dialectic, in which they kind of organize both sides of an argument, but their ultimate goal is to push you to their end goal or their destination. You know, and the destination of the globalists is the New World Order, a one world governmental system. And, you know, that's where we're pushing towards. And so these movements that I mentioned to you are all kind of under that umbrella of pushing towards a New World Order, one world governmental system. And, of course, we know some of the tools that they are using. And in this instance, with the March for Our Lives movement, they're using our young people, which is, if you understand the bigger picture and understand what's actually happening behind the scenes, it's pretty despicable what they're doing. I do believe that a lot of these people that are involved in these various movements are sincere. So I believe that there are young people that are sincerely, genuinely afraid because of the school shooting in Florida and some of the things that are happening around the country. I believe that they're afraid, and I believe that they are really, some of them are speaking out and saying, we want something to happen. We want you guys to protect us, basically. You know, and they want some laws to pass to get these things done. But the people that are organizing these movements behind the scenes, they have a different agenda that they're trying to push. And so the reason I say it's a little bit disappointing in how these things are coming to pass, and I don't get surprised anymore, it's because the ultimate end that they want is gun control. They want to do away with the Second Amendment, and ultimately that will give them the ability to move towards a one world governmental system. So their goal is to get rid of the sovereignty of nations. They want to have a police state where the people are controlled, and that will help them to move towards a one world government. Now, I know what you're saying, well, that sounds kind of far-fetched, but, you know, anything, if you follow me and follow the ministry, anything that I share, there are things that I have researched, that I have the documents to prove what I'm saying. You know, the people, the powers that be, the globalists actually write these things out in books, and they have talks and where they admit that that's their end goal. They also admit that Lucifer is the head of the one world governmental system. So being a pastor and a minister, and a lot of times people say, why do you talk about some of the stuff you say? They say it as though it's not biblical. And I just want you to understand that it is biblical. The Bible addresses all these things. And as a man of God, as a prophetic voice for the kingdom of God, we are called to speak out against these things. You know, in the book of Ezekiel, it talks about being a watchman on the wall. And it says that if the watchman sees the blood or sees the sword and he doesn't say anything, then the blood of the people is on their hands. And so being a watchman on the wall, it's important and vital for me to speak out on these things, to warn the people. Now, if people hear and they don't act on it, or they ignore the warning, then there's nothing I can do about it. But it's our job to warn the people about the impending danger that we see. And one of the greatest tools that they're using now is the over-sexualization. It's called media. I'm calling this media sexploitation. And so what they're doing is their end goal is, again, the New World Order. They're trying to corrupt the society and the culture, to take control of the people, in order for them to marshal in a one world government. And again, this is not something I'm speculating on or guessing. This is what they said. One of the tools that they used in the early part of the 20th century was the communism. And so you had Vladimir Lenin wrote the Communist Manifesto, and the Communist Manifesto was the strategy that they were using to push towards, you know, communism was making way for the one world governmental system. And of course, if you know what a communist government is, it's an economic and a political system that actually controls the people. So they wanted communism, and of course, you know, they were able to get communism in Russia and you know, Germany. You had the Socialist Party, and socialism is just a preparing the way for communism. And communism's ultimate goal is a one world governmental system. So when you understand the globalists, the international bankers, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, they use communism as a tool to get to the one world governmental system. And so some of the documents that you have read, there's a book by Henry Ford. It's called The International Jew, in which Henry Ford talks about the globalists, the Kabbalists. There's a book called The 13th Tribe by Arthur Koestler, and he talks about the people that are behind this conspiracy. There's also a book called The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, right? So all these books agree with each other. They agree with the conspiracy. They agree with the identity of the people that are behind it, and they kind of outline these things. So and so they use communism. Communism is a feeder system for the one world government. And part of their strategy is to use the media. And so it's called propaganda. So what propaganda is when you give information to move people to shape public opinion. So I'm going to share a quick video clip about just how deep this the propaganda goes. And I want to show you how most of our mainstream media is controlled by the ruling elite. And they're basically parroting the agenda of the ruling elite. So watch this video. I'll be back, and then I'll go. Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about troubling and irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories simply aren't true without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 So, as you can see, the media is pretty much controlled, and that's just one example of it. But you have to realize that that's not abnormal. What you just saw, it's not a abnormality. It's par for the course. So anyway, let's get back to the sexploitation of the media and how they're trying to over-sexualize our society, but more specifically, they want to over-sexualize our young people, and so they want to corrupt the community, corrupt the culture in order to control the masses. They break down the culture, they control the masses, and then they get the people dependent on the governmental system, which ultimately will control them.
Take, for example, Walt Disney. Right? And many people that will preach against the TV, they'll preach against the movies, they'll preach against Hollywood because it's obvious that that stuff is bad. But then they'll say, well, we watch Disney movies. And I've been to the home of preachers and Christians who would never watch TV or the movies, but yet they have the whole library of the Walt Disney movies. You know, those white plastic cases, and they have them all lined up. And I mean, they have tons of them lined up, scores of them. I don't know how many there are, but there's hundreds of them. They have them lined up and lined up, and they have their kids watching those movies all day long. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to prove to you right now that those movies are wicked. What? Disney movies? Come on, you're crazy. They're rated G. Well, let's see. First of all, did you know this? Did you know that Disney movies are filled with subliminal messages? Subliminal messages. Now, what are we talking about tonight? Sorcery. What are we talking about tonight? Getting inside your mind and messing with you. Controlling your thought process by supernatural means or demonic means. Or hey, I'm going to tell you something. Disney movies are filled with subliminal messages. And you say, oh, that's a hoax. I've seen it with my own eyes. When I was a teenager, I had a friend of mine sit me down at his house and show me the subliminal messages in the Disney movies. They're filled with subliminal messages. Let me give you some examples. The Lion King, filled with subliminal messages. Okay, all throughout the movie, there are pornographic pictures hidden in the movie. Like you'll be watching the movie, and just for a few seconds, something filthy will come on. Like off to the side, there will be some kind of a, reproductive anatomy will pop up, over here, and then over here. There's this one point where the lion, he kind of goes like this, and a cloud of dust comes up and just spells the word sex. And the word sex is put in the Lion King movie subliminally, literally hundreds of times. Hundreds of times. The shapes on the screen will spell the word. And I've seen it. I mean, I had my friend sit me down at his house and pausing the movie, showing me the word SEX popping up on the screen at different times because he knew where they were. And he would show me these things. Another one, and they all are filled with it. Aladdin is another one.
And when you think about the Second Amendment was written specifically for the individual citizens of the country to be able to defend themselves, and it was mostly because of governmental tyranny. If you think about the Revolutionary War, they were coming from under an oppressive Great Britain, if you will, England, and they were coming against them, and so they wanted to be able to defend themselves. And so the Second Amendment, which is right after the First Amendment, of course, obviously was a very important piece of them being able to keep that from happening in the future. So if that's the case, and these people had the Second Amendment for us to protect ourselves, protect our life, our property, and our liberty, then isn't it ironic that this one world governmental system is now pushing very hard to get rid of gun or control our guns, and ultimately they want to get rid of the Second Amendment. They'll try to make it seem like it's just about assault weapons, but that's just the beginning, which is why many people who understand the overall issue push so hard against any infringement on the Second Amendment. The First Amendment was also very important, and the practice of religion is very important as well, because the powers that be, the globalists, the communists, the socialists, all these tyrannical governmental systems, one of the first things they do is they take away your religious freedom, right? They want to control your religion because they understand that you can't control a people that not only has a firm faith in God, but also because their morals are less easily to corrupt. And so these things go hand in hand. And then you go to the Second Amendment, and all these things are interconnected, if you will. So anyway, the over-sexualization of the culture. So there's a book, a couple of books, but one in particular I would encourage you to get by William Guy Carr, and it's called Pawns in the Game. And it talks about the conspiracy, the Illuminati, globalist conspiracy, and he gives some insight, and he talks about some of the same things I'm talking about, and it just gives you another reference to get some of the information that I'm giving you. Here's a quote from the book. It says, "The average person today is woefully ignorant about so many things. I say this with great sadness, for our ignorance is Satan's greatest advantage over us. I recently read an interesting book called The Pawns in the Game," and here's a quote from the book. And he's quoting Vladimir Lenin, who wrote the Communist Manifesto. And Vladimir Lenin said, "The best revolutionary is a youth devoid of morals." So when they're talking about revolutionary, they're talking about an overthrow of the Western culture, the Western way of government. And so he says the best revolutionary is a youth devoid of morals. Now, his word is, of course, Vladimir Lenin is the person who wrote who set the outline for the communist strategy. And it says that in the communist organizations, all members work secretly to make young people of both sexes antisocial and immoral. Children up to teenage are taught to rebel against the discipline of the home. Parents are represented to their children as old-fashioned. Parental authority is scoffed at. The subverters argue that parents have lied to their children since they were old enough to listen regarding Santa Claus and where babies come from. So they use those as examples to say, see, your parents are lying to you. What else are they lying to you about? If you notice in this March for Your Lives movement, what they're saying is the adults have dropped the ball. They can't protect us, so we got to make a move, right? So it's all in the same ideology that they're trying to get these youth to be revolutionaries. But then when you understand the overall culture, that not only are they pushing this particular area, but they're also trying to over-sexualize our young people. Another strategy is the erasing gender identity. Feminism and homosexuality are two of the strategies that they use in order to do this. Feminism is, it says, feminism, our official gender ideology, masquerades as a movement for women's rights. In reality, feminism is a cruel hoax telling women their natural biological instincts are socially constructed to oppress them. So the whole idea of a woman wanting to be married to a man, to have children, you know, many women that are stay-at-home mothers because they want to raise their children and watch over the household. So the feminist movement, they wanted to socially engineer and mass manipulate people by telling women that those instincts are unnatural and they're socially constructed. They try to say that it is the oppressive patriarchal society or culture that is trying to oppress them, and so in order for them to be free of that, they have to become feminists. Now, what the ultimate goal is, feminism is an elite social engineering designed to destroy gender identity by making women masculine and men feminine. Increasingly, homosexuals are, increasingly heterosexuals are conditioned to behave like homosexuals who generally don't marry or have children. Courtship and monogamy are being replaced by sexual promiscuity. Now, there's a book also called Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, and he was part of what is called, known as, I think it's the Frankfurt School or the Tavistock Institute, one of these what they call think tanks. And what they do is they strategize on how to promote and push the one world government. So in the book Brave New World, and you know, you think about the title Brave New World, they're trying to say that this society is a good thing. And within this book, and I remember reading this one in 1984 when I was in high school, and basically what they're doing is they're trying to reconstruct culture as how it should be, but ultimately the culture that they're trying to reconstruct is one that's destructive. So instead of having monogamy and courtship, they promote sexual promiscuity and things of that nature. The Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, which are the international bankers, they're the globalists, they're like the head families of the Illuminati, created feminism to poison male-female relationships Their twin objectives are depopulation and totalitarian world government. These bankers create money out of nothing, and they think that they're God. Now I want to, again, you're probably saying, well, that seems pretty far-fetched. But actually, no. Their documents say that they're trying to reduce the population of the planet. There is a document called the Jaffe Memo, and I'll share that with you as well. In 1969, the U.S. Population Council came up with the strategy on how to depopulate America, and promoting homosexuality and also attacking the gender roles were two of the strategies of the depopulation. Also abortion. Abortion are some of the other arms of this, and I'll show that document to you. Again, nothing that I say is just a wild speculation or a guess or an assumption. These are all things that are well documented, and these are things that I have researched. Also, and this is the one I want to get to, Satanism makes a god of sex. So Satanism actually makes sex a god. Now, if you think about, if you ever heard of Aleister Crowley and some of these people, he wrote the Law of Thelema, which is do whatever you will, is the whole of the law. All of the commandments of God are attacked by Satanism, are attacked by this globalist. You know, like I said, they're Luciferians. They worship Lucifer. And so what they do is they attack all the laws of God, and whatever God says to do, they do the opposite. You know, and the Bible says in the book of Isaiah, woe to him who called good evil and evil good, right? It's the turning upside down of common sense and what we have accepted as society as normal. So we accept as society as normal male and female marriages, right? One male, one female. We accept that as normal. Not having sexualized children, right? Children aren't supposed to be exposed to sex at a young age. So pedophilia is very prominent with them. And all these other social norms that they try to attack, but they attack it in order to corrupt the culture. So that's the god of Satanism. Aleister Crowley basically said in order for you to truly be a Satanist and get to the higher level, you have to violate all of the 10 commandments in order to sear your conscience, because they believe that the conscience, our conscience, which we know the Holy Spirit gives us conscience, we also know that God, it convicts us when we do wrong things, right? We have a somewhat of a common conscience as human beings. So what they believe is in order that conscience that God gives us is the thing that oppresses us and keeps us in bondage. And so you have to break free of that. And in order to break free of that, you have to violate all of God's laws. If you look in Leviticus 18, and these aren't new things, this is the same thing that the enemy has recycled for a long time. So if you look in Leviticus 18, they God has a whole list of forbidden sexual practices. And the reason he told his people not to follow after those practices is because the nations like Egypt and Canaan land, they were all satanically inspired cultures. And these satanically inspired cultures all practice these sexual practices. So when we see this, like I said, the enemy doesn't do anything new. He just recycles the same thing and repackages it. So that's what they're trying to push in our culture now. These same cultural you know, the things that we acknowledge in our Judeo-Christian idea of morality, they go against all of them. And so the media is a tool, and it's amazing, like I said in the book of Isaiah, when it says, woe to him who call evil good and good evil. It's a inversion or a turning upside down of what is right and what is moral. When you look at in 2018, you know, transgenderism is a huge issue. And so they've been so good at socially engineering our culture and our society that now if you tell a man who's born biologically a man that he's a man, they say that that's hate speech. If you tell a woman that she's actually a woman, even though she has breasts and a uterus and a vagina, then they'll say that that's hate speech. It's just an evacuation of common sense and just reality, right? But the enemy wants to do that to destroy us, to corrupt the culture, and to ultimately destroy us. It is Satanism, as it is direct from the top, which is responsible for the increase in juvenile delinquency, but those selected by governments of the world to investigate this problem invariably give every cause other than the right one. So when you understand our children are rebellious, you understand the culture, especially if you look in the hip-hop culture, it's about sex, it's about drugs, it's about rebellion, it's about, this gangster mentality, and they're pushing that. The over-sexualization of people. Like I said, gender roles and gender identity now is no longer, it used to be called gender dysphoria dysphoria, which meant it was a mental illness for you not to connect with your biological sex. But now, if you say that, they say that that's hate speech. You know, it's natural. Natural law says a male and a female would be together because that's how we procreate. That's how we perpetuate the species. But now they would tell you that if you say that marriage should only be limited between one man and one woman, then they say that that's hate speech. But that is the powers that be strategically pushing their one world government agenda. So we're going to look at a little bit more about that, about how they're trying to over-sexualize our society and our culture. Okay, now I want to talk about one of the tools, one of the biggest tools of the globalists, or I should say some of the organizations. So the media, as I said, is owned, 90% of the media is owned by 6 companies, and all these companies have ties into the one world government, globalist, Illuminati. And there's a couple of organizations I want to talk to you about, but the one in particular is called the Bilderberg Group. So I don't want you to think that, you know, all these things, like I said, if you understand that 90% of all the newscasters, all the people in the media executives, all have the same narrative. The Hollywood actors and actresses, most musicians, all of them have the exact same narrative. They all are really super anti-Trump. All of them are pro-LGBT. They are pro-transgenderism. They are pro-illegal immigration. So when you say things like, you know, we should have security on our borders, and they say that's hate speech, understand that that's one of the ways that they look to destroy the sovereignty of a country is by having weak borders and allowing anybody just to filter into your country. That's one of the strategies that they use, because that's what helps to deteriorate a society or a culture, right? So that's part of their strategy. You know, the LGBT movement is a part of their population control agenda. Again, this is not my opinion. This is a fact. Corrupting the morals and over-sexualizing our children is one of the strategies. And as you see some of the video clips, that it's so deep. Even Disney is a part of this. You know, Disney is part of the MK Ultra mind control programming, you know, sphere, if you will, that helps to program and manipulate starting young, and the younger that they can get into the minds of the youth, the easier they are to control you. So anyway, one group in particular I want to talk about is the Bilderberg Group. Now, the Bilderberg Group, if you're not familiar with it, you have the 13 bloodline families of the Illuminati, and then you have underneath that, you have many organizations that are organizations used by them in order to promote their one world agenda, one world government agenda. One of them in particular is the Bilderberg Group. So if you understand the Bilderberg Group, the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations, and some of the others, and I'll show you a clip of those. I'll show you the slide. But the Bilderberg Group was created in 1954, and there's a book if you want to look at it called The True Story of the Bilderberg Group, and it's by Daniel Estelin, and he went into a 14-year research on the Bilderberg Group, and so he gives a lot of insight as to, and again, these things are real, they're not fake. You know, the news may try to downplay it, mainstream media. That's because the mainstream media is bought and paid for by these people. They're literally owned by that. And I promise you, every major news person, I mean, like the high ups and news executives, any people that you see that are considered like opinion makers or public policy makers, all of them are part of one of these organizations. But the interesting thing that I found is, and a lot of people criticize President Trump because of how he acts, but what's been very clear over these last 2 years, for the most part, is that Trump is at war with the globalists, and that's why they hate him. There's an all-out war on him because that he is the policies and the things that he's saying that I've heard him say, as far as, you know, a lot of people say he's just pandering to his base, but regardless if you think he's pandering to his base or not, if you understand the strategy of the globalists and the one world government that want to destroy America, and you understand that his policies that he's speaking out against all go against their strategy, then it's safe to say that you know, there's an old saying, the enemy of my enemy is my ally, right? So if someone is fighting against someone who's trying to destroy you, then it's okay to be in cahoots with them, so to speak. So the Bilderbergs. In 1954, the most powerful men in the world met for the first time in Oosterbeek, Netherlands, and they debated the future of the world and decided to meet annually in secret. They call themselves the Bilderberg Group, with a membership representing a who's who of world power elites, mostly from America, Canada, and Western Europe, with many familiar names like David Rockefeller, Henry Kissinger, Bill Clinton, Gordon Brown, Angela Merkel, Alan Greenspan, Ben Bernanke, Larry Summers, Tim Geithner. If you recognize Alan Greenspan, Bernanke, and Tim Geithner, all of these, coincidentally enough, were the head of the Federal Reserve at one point in time. Larry Summers was one of the people that were very instrumental in what's called mortgage-backed securities, and which almost crashed our economy. Lloyd Blankenstein, George Soros, which you've heard me talk about a lot, and he's a very, very important figure for you to understand who George Soros is. Donald Rumsfeld, he's the former, what was he, the Secretary of Defense. Rupert Murdoch. Rupert Murdoch was the head of Fox. What's it called? It's called News Media. Anyway, they own Fox and other companies. And other heads of state. There's influential senators, congressmen, and parliamentarians, Pentagon and NATO brass, members of the European royalty, selected media figures, and invited others. Some quietly, by some accounts. They also said that Barack Obama they didn't know if he was an official member. Now, this is the 14 years of research he did. He doesn't know if he was an official member, but he did. He was invited to speak there. And I will say that I heard a speech with former President Obama, which he admitted that he was invited to the Bilderberg Group's meeting. They're always represented top figures from the Council on Foreign Relations, the IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund that controls the international banking, World Bank, Trilateral Commission, the European Union, and powerful central bankers from the Federal Reserve, the ECBs, and the Bank of England's Mervyn King. For over half a century, no agenda or discussion topics became public, nor is any press coverage allowed. The few invited fourth estates, the fourth estate is the media, attendees and their bosses are sworn to secrecy. Nonetheless, Estlund undertook an investigative journey that became his life's work. And this is what Estlund states: slowly, one by one, I have penetrated the layers of the secrecy surrounding the Bilderberg Group, but I could not have done this without the help of conscientious objectors from inside, as well as outside the group's membership. As a result, he keeps their names confidential. Whatever its early mission, the group is now a shadow world government threatening to take away our right to direct our own destinies by creating a disturbing reality, very much harming the public's welfare. In short, the Bilderbergs want to supplant individual nation-state sovereignty with an all-powerful global government, corporate-controlled and checkmated by militarized enforcement. And he asked the questions: imagine a private club where presidents, prime ministers, international bankers, and generals rub shoulders, where gracious royal chaperones ensure everyone gets along, and where the people running the wars, markets, and Europe and America say that they never dare say in public. Along with military dominance, controlling the world's money is crucial, for with it comes absolute control of the powerful 19th century Rothschild family. As the powerful 19th century Rothschild family understood, the patriarch Amschel Rothschild said, and this is his quote, "Give me control of a nation's money, and I care not who makes its laws." So when you understand that the Federal Reserve, which is a offshoot of the Bank of London and the World Bank, they control our money supply. They're the ones that loan money to our government, which is where you have the Federal Reserve. You have the prime rate that they determine the rate for lending money and borrowing money. Also, when you understand that that we are indebted to the Federal Reserve, which is why on your money, if you pull out a dollar bill or a $10 bill out of your pocket, it will say a Federal Reserve note, because they control our money and our money supply. The rules of the steering committee is the invited guests must come alone, no wives, girlfriends, husbands, or boyfriends, personal assistants, bodyguards, CIA, or other secret protectors cannot attend the conference and must eat in a separate hall. Also, the guests are explicitly forbidden from giving interviews to journalists or divulge anything that goes on in the meetings. Host governments provide overall security to keep away outsiders. 1/3 of attendees are political figures. The others are from industry, finance, academia, labor, and communications. Membership consists of annual attendees, around 80 of the world's most powerful people, and others only invited occasionally because their knowledge or involvement in relevant topics. Those most valued are asked back, and some first-timers are chosen for their possible later usefulness. Arkansas Governor Bill Clinton, for example, who attended in 1991, David Rockefeller told him why the North American Free Trade Agreement was a Bilderberg priority and that the group needed him to support it. The next year, Clinton was elected president, and on January 1st, 1994, NAFTA took effect. Numerous other examples are similar, including to get those chosen for powerful government, military, and other positions. The group's grand design is for one world government with a single global marketplace, policed by one world army and financially regulated by one world central bank using one global currency. And so anyway, that's the Bilderberg Group, and I want you to understand that this is a real thing. It's a real organization, and many of the people that you watch on television, some of the most powerful people in politics and government and in finance are members of the Bilderberg Group. They're sworn to secrecy, and they have to carry out this agenda. Now, when we talked about NAFTA, and again, one of the many things that I knew that President Trump spoke directly against the agenda of the one world governmental system, the New World Order, because he talked about NAFTA and TPP. And NAFTA, which was in 1994, the Clintons passed, is the North American Free Trade Agreement, which combines North America, which is Canada, United States, and Mexico, under one financial umbrella. And so the one world governmental system, what they do is they split the world up into 10 sectors, and NAFTA is one of them. Also the TPP. All of these are trade agreements that are orchestrated by the powers that be in order to help to collapse the individual country's economy for them to become a part of the one world economy. And if you notice in the book of Revelation, it says that they will not be able to buy or sell unless they take the mark of the beast. So the system of the beast is the one world governmental system, which we know they are moving towards. Media partners. So former CBS News President Richard Salant explained the major media's role. Our job is to give people not what they want, but what we decide they ought to have. CBS and other media giants control everything we see, hear, and read through television, radio, newspapers, magazines, books, films, and a large portion of the internet. Their top officials and some journalists attend Bilderberg meetings on condition that they report nothing. The Rockefeller family wields enormous power, even though its reigning patriarch David Rockefeller just recently passed. However, for years, the Rockefellers, led by David, gained great influence over the media. With it, the family gained sway over public opinion. With the pulse of public opinion, they gained deep influence in politics, and with this politics of subtle corruption, they are taking control of the nation and now aim for world total domination. The Bilderberg Rockefeller scheme is to make their views so appealing by camouflaging them that they become public policy, and they pressure world leaders into submitting to the needs of the masters of the universe. The free world press is their instrument to disseminate agreed upon propaganda. And again, this is all documented, and you can find this stuff out for yourself. Programming the public mind. According to sociologist Hadley Cantrill in his 1967 book, The Human Dimension, Experiences in Public Policy, government psychopolitical operations are propaganda campaigns designed to create perpetual tension and to manipulate different groups of people to accept the particular climate of opinion the CFR seeks to achieve in the world. Canadian writer Ken Adachi added, what most Americans believe to be public opinion is in reality carefully crafted, scripted propaganda designed to elicit a desired behavioral response from the public. And noted Australian academic and activist Alex Carey explained the three most important 20th century developments: the growth of democracy, the growth of corporate power, and the growth of corporate propaganda as a means of protecting corporate power against democracy. David Rockefeller's memoirs, and of course David Rockefeller is like the head of the Rockefeller family, which is one of the bloodline Illuminatis. They're one of the globalists, one of the most influential people. And David Rockefeller, in his memoirs, and like I said, I have his book here. He wrote this, so this is not a rumor or gossip. He writes on page 405 of his memoirs, some even believe that we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists, and conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty and I am proud of it. In her book, Trilateralism, Trilateral Commission and Elite Planning for the World Management, Holly Sklar wrote, powerful figures in America, Europe, and East Asia let the rich safeguard the interests of Western capitalists in an explosive world, probably by discouraging protectionism, nationalism, or any response that would pit the elites of one against the elites of another in the common quest for global dominance. Zbigniew Brzezinski is probably somebody you heard. He's one of the co-founders of the Trilateral Commission, and he wrote in his book, Between Two Ages, America's Role in the Tectonic Era, people, governments, and economies of all nations must serve the needs of a multinational banks and corporations. The Constitution is inadequate. The old framework of international politics with their sphere of influence, the friction of sovereignty, is clearly no longer compatible with reality. So they're trying to destroy sovereign, and a sovereign nation means just a self-governed nation. So we in the United States, we have our own government. It's supposed to be for, by, and of the people, right? So we're supposed to elect our leaders. They're supposed to govern over us, and we're supposed to hold them accountable. We have checks and balances. But understand that they're saying, these globalists, that that's no longer in their best interest for those things to happen. So what they do is they have created a shadow government. They call it the deep state. It's behind the scenes, and they're controlling the events, even though you don't know about them. And their interest is not the interest of the United States, but the interest of the global government. So I'll show you a couple of clips, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention. So don't be surprised when you and don't fall for the strategy that you see all mainstream media pushing a certain agenda. You have to understand that there's things working behind these agendas that they're pushing, and usually it's not in our best interest. You have to do the research, you have to look behind the scenes, and you have to have your eyes open. And I believe that, like I've been saying with the 2019 movement, that we have a great opportunity for us to walk in truths, to not be deceived by the enemy, so that we can live our lives to the fullest. See, God has each individual person has destiny that was given by God. He has a plan and a purpose for your life. And the governmental tyranny of the one world government wants to destroy that. It wants to take away your individual liberties, your ability to think for yourself, and the ability to design the life that God has called you to design for you and your family. So until next time, this has been Pastor Joe Green. I bless you. Shalom, shalom, in Jesus' name.
Every year, the world's largest CEOs, political figures, financial leaders, and other very important people hold a secret gathering known as the Bilderberg meeting or group. What they actually discuss, nobody knows, which has given rise to endless conspiracy theories about the real nature of the conference and its attendees. Journalists who've tried to find out have even been detained. So, what exactly is the Bilderberg Group, and what do we know about it? Well, originally the group was formed in 1954 in the Netherlands for the express purpose of promoting Atlanticism. This is basically a cooperative movement between the United States and Europe to promote financial prosperity as well as to pool defense and international influence. Totally unsurprisingly, this meeting came into existence just as the Cold War ramped into second gear and countries around the world chose their side of the Russia-US conflict. One of the founders of the Bilderberg Group was Joseph Redinger, who was the first Secretary General for the European movement, which led directly to the modern-day European Union. So, effectively, the original intention of the Bilderberg Group was to join all the westernized countries in Europe with the hyper-Western United States. Not only did this union work, it followed the stability of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO. The defense network against the Soviet Union provided a solid backing for Western leaders to work together. Today, although almost no details of what is specifically discussed behind closed doors are ever openly shared, a list of broad topics are provided to the public. The June 2016 meeting in Germany included points about cybersecurity, energy and commodity prices, Russia and China, and the term precariat, which describes workers in jobs with no future security or long-term goals. These issues are likely going to be the most relevant for the global economy and security in the near future. We also know who attends these conferences. It's invite only, and varies from about 120 to 150 attendees. This year's guest list was publicly revealed to include powerful figures such as former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, former CIA head David Petraeus, Senator Lindsey Graham, billionaire Peter Thiel, and a large number of CEOs from companies as diverse as LinkedIn to Royal Dutch Shell. What few things members of the conference are allowed to publicly discuss are bound to what is called the Chatham House Rule. No information shared from the meeting can be attributed to the person who said it or their affiliation, allowing controversial opinions to come through without fear of public repercussion. Of course, such secrecy is prone to conspiracy theories from both sides of the political spectrum. Some conservatives suggest that the group intends to take over the world, imposing a single government and a sort of socialist economy, while those on the liberal side fear a strip down of regulation and unbridled free market capitalism. The distinction shows that nobody actually knows what the meeting is about besides those who attend. One thing is clear, however, such a large grouping of the most powerful people in the world is not a simple sit and chat, and it's likely that world events are influenced by the results of the Bilderberg Group.